Kaboom!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm SuperCliff. And if I may, of course I can. It's my video. Let me start by quoting every single evil person ever. It has begun. Absolute Carnage, issue number 1, written by Donny Cates and the art done by Ryan Stegman, marks the beginning of Marvel's current event, Absolute Carnage. So let's do this. The issue begins with a brief recap of all the highlighted moments that have led up to this book's story. Knull, being the creator/god of the symbiotes, planning Clintar, though not a planet, but rather billions of symbiotes wrapped around together, imprisoning Knull, the separation of both Eddie and the Venom symbiote during the War of Realms event, as well as the reveal that symbiotes leave behind a piece of themselves within the host's DNA in order for their species to communicate with the larger hive mind, that being Knull, and that the piece they leave behind is referred to as the Codex. And once all codexes from past hosts are collected, it can achieve one to call upon Knull, waking him up, end of the world type stuff. Yeah, you get it. All of this is told by Eddie Brock, who's letting his son, Dylan Brock, in on the know, and of all the threats that are to come. Basically, everything that's important, except telling Dylan that Eddie himself is his actual father. And as our two characters make their way through Times Square, Eddie warns Dylan that they need to keep a low profile. Then once he does so, a wanted image of Eddie pops up across every single monitor within Times Square, saying that he's wanted for murder. So yeah, Eddie's off to a great start. No, he's not. Suspecting that he's been spotted, Eddie brings Dylan down to the subway, and as the two wait to board the incoming train, Cletus Cassidy's already there, hiding behind a newspaper. It then pushes the two onto the train rails. And moments more before just getting hit by the train, the Venom symbiote shows up, saving both Eddie and Dylan from being crushed. The symbiote then explains that he's able to communicate with Eddie once again because of what transpired back in War of the Realms. Don't worry, it's magic. It cures every plot point. Following that, the police arrive, and while all this is happening, an explosion occurs. Then, Cletus Cassidy, Carnage himself, emerges from the aftermath, and with having been fused together with Knull's symbiote dragon, is able to take out Venom with complete ease. While Carnage is trash-talking to Eddie, threatening that he's going to peel off Dylan's skin, Eddie places his hands onto the train rails, causing himself and Carnage to both get electrocuted. Eddie somehow survives and is able to escape with Dylan as the wounded Carnage laughs, knowing that he'll eventually catch up. Afterwards, left with no plan B or C, Eddie and Dylan arrive at Randy Robinson's apartment, room 616, that's cute, to meet with his roommate Peter Parker. The three go out to a local diner where Eddie gives Spidey a rundown of what's been going on. Once Dylan walks away, Spidey, confused to see a young child traveling alongside Eddie, asks if the kid is his son, and if Dylan knows that Eddie is his father. Eddie tells Spider-Man that it is his kid, but is yet to inform Dylan about the truth. We are then shifted to a breaking news story, which begins playing on the TV. The news reports that a mass grave of bodies were dug up recently in northern New Jersey, and while many of the victims are waiting to be identified, many have already been. Key members who were affiliated with the defunct organization known as the Life Foundation. Also, the body of General Ross, which is weird because didn't he already die back in Captain America ongoing series? Yeah, he did. Also, all the victims' spines have been taken. Yikes. Unfortunately, the TV is turned off since the cook doesn't want to gross out his patrons, which makes sense. Sometimes you gotta make those tough calls as head chef. Eddie begins freaking out and tells Spider-Man that all the victims have at some point throughout Marvel's history have worn a symbiote, which also includes Annie, Eddie's ex-wife and the mother of Dylan. Then, during the course, with robbers who picked the worst night to rob diner, Eddie tells Spidey that Carnage already has a head start on them, and that he's not going to stop until he retrieves all the codices from every past host, dead or alive. Spidey suggests that they need someone who has the experience in dealing with symbiotes, and who also possesses a machine to extract codices. Spider-Man mentions Reed Richards, but feels that Reed would need months to build such a machine, months that our heroes do not have. However, Venom admits that he knows a guy. And no, it's not Ant-Man. Changing settings, we are taking the Rex Strickland's hideout, where the Maker, an alternate version of Reed Richards, has set up shop. Once Eddie and Dylan are greeted by the Maker, Eddie notices a machine that he's working on. The Maker confirms that Eddie is in need of an extraction machine, and reveals that he's been working on it 35 days prior. Curious, Eddie asks the Maker on how he already knew that he'd be in need of such a machine. The Maker responds that when the first two met during the Oversight story arc, the Maker's people were interested in symbiotes and are scientifically driven in making symbiotes whole. The Maker then goes on to say that the machine will be fully operational within a couple of hours. Gotta make that mint fresh, son. Following that, Spider-Man and Normie arrive at Rex's hideout. Normie being the grandson of Norman Osborn, Osborn and Spider-Man's godson carries a piece of the Carnage symbiote thanks to the whole event during the Red Goblin storyline. Not knowing if the machine will work 100%, the Maker suggests testing it on Normie, but Spider-Man rejects the idea, and with that, the Maker suggests an alternative candidate, one who is preferably known to be dangerous. Therefore, we're taking the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, where both Venom and Spider-Man arrive to retrieve Norman Osborn, who's locked up in there. They are helped with John Jameson, aka Wolfman, and who is also a security guard for the Institute. Suddenly, Spider-Man's spider sense goes off, and it's here where John begins to lose control, saying that someone's in his head, meaning Carnage. John then shoots the alarm panel, causing all the sirens to start blaring off. We then see Cletus Cassidy laughing as he begins making his way through the Institute. Carnage begins hatching from his stomach several red symbiote leeches. As he makes his way through the cell block, he gives each inmate a leech, transforming all the inmates into four-armed Carnage monsters. His own little private arm, hearing the villain's laugh echoing across the hall, Venom and Spider-Man prep themselves in order to defend Osborn from Carnage, and the fight is brutal. A literal mosh pit, as swarms of Carnage monsters crash against our heroes, and while the fight goes down, Carnage manages to grab Spidey and slices him, throwing the web slinger into Osborn's cell, where we see Osborn himself readying a shiv for our hero. Fortunately, Venom knocks out Norman, which buys Spider-Man time to begin punching his way through the cell wall. While Venom holds back Carnage and his forces, the two are violently slammed against the stone wall, allowing Carnage to consume Norman Osborn, ending the issue with Carnage saying that he's here to make friends. And that was the beginning of Marvel's event Absolute Carnage. And oh boy, this was a meaty issue. A lot of content, while also surprisingly being reader friendly. So yeah, for those of you who haven't been reading Venom, don't worry, you can actually begin this issue without having done so. Good job, Donny Cates. Also the art, holy shit. The red. There's like a ton of red. I mean, it makes sense. It is a Carnage-based book. However, there's so many different kinds of red coloring, which Ryan Stegman does beautifully. He's able to blend all the different kinds of red to the point where each red is a different color, and that each red stands out on its own. Really cool to see from an artist using one color. Yes, the book is $7.99, $8. You are getting your money's worth. However, it is a little bit too expensive. I would like to see this issue maybe be like $5.99. That $1, it can make a difference. Overall, I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. Definitely pick it up and definitely get into it. It's a bloody time. And that wraps up today's video. If you guys like my content, please hit that subscribe button, as well as hit the bell symbol, so that the world of comics is never missed out. Peace, guys.